Hello, I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. Today, Karl Denninger of MarketTicker.org. He is a professional investor, puts his money where his mouth is, also gives a lot of analysis, is kind of a journalist on his site. Millions of people come to his site every year for that analysis. Karl Denninger, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, let's talk about the debates last week with Romney. He apparently, even on CNN, he was chosen as the winner. I thought he won, although I'm not a big Republican or a big Democrat. Gary Johnson's not involved. But you wrote some good stuff last week about hate. Both Romney and Obama are not giving it to us straight on the whole Medicare thing and how much is going to have to be cut. What's the real deal? Romney says, well, I'd like to, have seniors get no cuts at all. Is that true?
That's impossible. But let's remember that Mitt Romney moved the goalposts last night. The common Republican mantra for the last 2 years has been nobody 50 years or older will see their Medicare tampered with. That's what I've heard in town hall meetings. I called Steve Sutherland and Jeff Miller on it in public a year and a half ago. I've called other people on it, and I've said, look, this is mathematically impossible because at present rates of expansion, which go back from 1980 to today, the amount of money that the federal government spends doubles every 7 years and change, and it currently stands at $850 billion annually. So at that rate, in 15 years, approximately, it'll be $15 trillion, by the time you get from 50 to 85, right? So, if you look at the 35-year time horizon, 50 is where you claim today everyone's protected, and 85 is approximately life expectancy. So that's 35 years, and if you run that out in the number of doublings, it ends up to be about $14 to $15 trillion, which, by the way, is about the size of the entire GDP of the country today. That is clearly not going to happen. It's also 3.5, 4 times the size of the federal budget, which also isn't going to happen. But moving it back to 20 years, which is what Mitt Romney essentially did last night, still doesn't work because you're still going to be 2.5 doublings, which means we're going to be spending more on Medicare and Medicaid than the entire size of the federal budget by the time you die. And that isn't going to happen either. So we are still in the lie factory here when it comes to dealing with the medical system. And the problem is it's not entitlements. You cannot fix this by cutting Medicare and Medicaid. You have to kill the monopoly protections that the medical system has that prevent the free market from working. This is why, although your DVD player went from costing $1,000 a number of years ago to $30 today at Walmart, your MRI scan went up in price.
Because there's no competition. And you're saying real competition means, hey, listen, wow, instead of charging $500 and the other guy down the road is charging $300, and next year they're charging $200, and the next year, well, we can make it for $150. So instead of having an $800 MRI or a $1,900 MRI, it ends up being, we'll take $150. And so what you're saying is that what really has to happen is, which is not going to be good for the medical industry, they're going to make less money. They like monopolies because they can charge up and show growth each and every year. And you're saying they have a government-protected quasi-monopoly, right?
It's not a quasi-monopoly. It's an actual monopoly. I mean, you look at what's going on, for example, with reimportation. It is against the law for me to drive to Canada, fill the back of my car up with Viagra at $2 a piece, come back into the United States and sell them for $2.25. That's a felony. If I do that, I go to prison. Well, I wonder why that's against the law. Okay, in a free market, that the price would be $2.10. $2 plus whatever somebody figured their cost was to transport plus a small profit. But this is not what we have in the system today. We haven't had it for 30 years, and until we go back to it, this is going to be the problem. Just to give you one quick example. If you take the 1963 cost to have a child in the hospital and you apply the consumer price index to that, you should be able to have a baby in the hospital, which is a routine procedure that millions of people undergo every year, right? You should be able to do that for about $1,000. There is nowhere in the country that you could do it for less than 10 times that much. Okay? So this is a scam. And the problem is that when you look at fixing this, approximately $1.4 trillion has to come out of somebody's hide every year. We have two choices. It can come out of Granny's hide, in which case nobody's going to vote for the person who says it's going to come out of Granny's side, okay, or it can come out of the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry and then the physician, it can come out of their hide. And that will cause a severe recessionary environment in the short term as we reallocate those resources towards something productive. But this is not about what I want. This is not about what Mitt Romney wants or Obama wants. It doesn't about what anybody wants. This is about arithmetic.
And the arithmetic says big changes are going to come in the healthcare industry because we just can't afford it. It's just astronomical, and there's no way the math works out. Correct?
Yeah, the arithmetic says we either fix this or the government collapses, and along with it, our society. So those are the choices. Now, what can happen here if we continue down the road we're on with Obama and Romney's, Romneycare and Obamacare, is that we don't fix any of this, and it gets forced by rationing instead. All right, at which point what's going to functionally happen is if you're very wealthy, you'll get on a plane and fly to India and have whatever you need done. If you're not and you need to have a heart bypass, well, we'll get to you in 3 or 4 years if you're still alive.
Huh.
Okay, yeah. And that, in fact, is what happens in Canada right now.
Well, aren't there some onerous regulations in the Obamacare legislation that have nothing to do with the actual taking care of people medically? I mean, don't we have this big, addition to the IRS, all these other regulations, all these other, laws, all this other stuff that they're doing that, is that good that's not good for the country either, is it?
No, it's not. And some of them are really stupid. Let me just give you one example that happens to hit me personally. Okay. I take donations for my website over PayPal. And one of the things that PPACA said is that PayPal now has to 1099 me every year for however much money comes in. Okay, well, I don't care because I pay my taxes. I don't rip off the IRS. I report my income and I pay taxes on it. But I have a second PayPal account that's a personal account that occasionally I buy or sell things that are personal that have nothing to do with business operations. And what that law has done has said that they have to 1099 everything associated with my tax number. So now if, let's say I have an extra disk drive laying around my house or an old laptop that I want to sell, and I put it on eBay, and somebody PayPals me $300, that gets reported to me as income, even though it's not income. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that happens. So what occurs there? Well, I'll throw it out because I'm not going to pay 30% of whatever I sell something for my personal stuff, whether it's a bicycle or an old laptop or whatever. I mean, that's crazy, but that is the kind of thing that's going on.
Well, let's talk about the Operation Twist and the $40 billion a month that basically people in the mainstream media think this is okay. We got $40 billion a month unlimited, according to the Fed, for buying mortgage-backed securities, which is a huge fraud. I mean, they packaged liar loans. They rated them AAA when they weren't. They didn't have the paperwork. When they didn't, they committed perjury and forgery. And well, it's okay. It's like selling a treasury and coming back, a couple years later and go, that's toxic. But anyway, the long and short of it is, $40 billion a month there. They had another announcement that when Operation Twist ends, they're taking the treasuries, the short term, and turn them into long term, which is just pretty smart, I guess. But after they run out of those, they're more unsterilized. We're going to continue. We're about $85 billion a month. That's what, a trillion two a year? And this is what's going to happen with this? I mean, there is no end in sight, Karl. What do you think is going to happen?
It's very close to the entire output of deficits that the federal government is running at the present time, when you look at it in terms of balance sheets, okay? And the problem with doing this is that deficit spending, no matter how you do it, is inherently identical to a tax on the economy in that amount. So what the federal government has done over the last 4 years is run deficits of between 8 and 12% of gross domestic product. We cannot get around the fact that this is exactly identical to the IRS showing up at your door in terms of what it does to the economy and saying, hand me 10% of everything you have, everything you made, everything you sold. It applies to every transaction that takes place within the economy. It is a huge tax increase, and it's hidden. You don't see it as a tax, but it acts by devaluing your purchasing power. So, and the worst part of this is that it falls disproportionately on the poor and the lower middle class. Because where is this shown up? It's shown up in food. It's shown up in gasoline. Okay? And these are places where the really well off, they don't care so much if gas goes from $2 to $3 a gallon.
They don't
But
care
how
if it
about,
goes from $5 to $8 a gallon. Oh, they'll say, can I get it? Okay, I make, $400,000 a year. Okay, so I end up paying an extra $600 a year or $2,000 a year in gas. I don't care. But somebody working at Walmart making $14,000 a year and has to pay $2,000 a year, they're cutting back somewhere else.
well, not only that, but it's, it also shows up in food. I mean, you look at someone like myself and I say, okay, my food bill went up $50 last month. So what? All right. I mean, it doesn't affect my lifestyle. The $50 does not impact me. Yes, I'd like to have it, but it's an evening out at the bar. All right. For somebody of lower income, that $50 may be the difference between their kid having something to eat tonight. And so this is a big deal. And the problem is that the solution that they put forward is, we just increase food stamps. We increase the, Social Security disability payments and the number of people who qualify. But that's a circular thing. That's like eating your own tail. All right. You will not satisfy your own hunger by biting off your finger and consuming it. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Karl Denninger, marketticker.org. Thank you for being on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you.